I'm going ahead and call the meeting to order. Ms. Ruth, if you would please do roll call.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman York.
Seeing none, we'll close public comment and move on. No approval of absences, so we'll move on to the approval of minutes for the January 8th meeting.
So Commissioner Mandel, I move that we approve the minutes from January 8th, 2025.
I second.
All right, got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. We're going to move on to item 5, consent public hearing, items A and B.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And for the record, Andrew Demas with Development Services, reading in tonight's consent agenda. Beginning with item number 2, Pope Place Unit 1, Block 7, Lot 1R. Item number 3, Del Mar South Campus, Block 1, Lot 3. That is a conditional approval. Item number 4, London Town 10. That's a master preliminary plat. Staff recommends approval as the submitted plats meet Texas Local Government Code as well as the Unified Development Code standards. And item number 5, zoning case ZN 8534, Port of Corpus Christi. It is a request from the RS6 Single Family 6 District to the IL Light Industrial District. Staff recommends approval. That concludes tonight's consent agenda. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to address them.
Thank you, Andrew. Commissioners have any questions for staff on items 2 through 5?
I just had a quick question on number 2. What changed on that? Because it looked the same as what I could tell, but did it get larger?
It's an adjustment of a lot line.
So it just got a little bigger?
One lot was a little bit bigger, one lot's a little bit smaller, but that's the gist of it.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions?
On item number 4, what's the plan with County Road 33?
Going to need a little context on your question. That's a big question.
I'm just curious. I mean, right now that's like a goat road all the way down there at that end, correct?
Correct. The city has, believe, annexed a majority of it, and as it progresses development on either side, the city's going through the process of determining what has to be improved and to what level in order to make sure development is served.
Because I don't recall, but is County Road 33 on the current CIP?
That is an excellent question. I believe it's on the midterm of the ranges, but I don't recall if it's on the very next one or the following, but I know it's on the new roadway master plan that was adopted or created by Pape Dawson.
Because from a right-of-way perspective, I mean, do we have enough right-of-way there to do a pretty significant collector?
So on paper, it is a C3 collector, which is pretty wide. It really only needs a C1 standard, which is a 60-foot right-of-way with a 40-foot pavement section. That is where we're going to stay, kind of in those sidelines of a 60-40.
Okay.
Sorry, can you clarify, is it a C3 or is it a C1? Is it going to be a C3 75 foot?
On paper and dedicated is a C3.
So it's 75 foot dedicated?
Correct. It'll only be constructed to a C1.
Does that answer your question? Okay. You have any others?
So ultimately, who's responsible for improving the road? Is it, as development happens, the developer has to do it, or is that something the city's going to undertake?
That is a discussion that's occurring now of to what level is developer responsibility versus the city. So that hasn't been quite flushed out yet.
I know they have issues right now on County Road 33 because it was one of those weird ones where it was County Road that got annexed, but then there's a neighborhood being built, and then, it's kind of in that gray area, and a lot of the residents have been upset over what it is because there's no clear path basically on what's going to happen to it. So.
Right. And that's, as each plat has been submitted, there's been a thorough discussion between traffic engineering, streets department, the developer, as well as the county, not the county, but of course there's input from the school district coming from London ISD of adding sidewalks and to what condition they'll be installed and especially the timing.
I had a question. Being the fact that it's going to be annexed, which is going to be city limits, and the drainage area, are they going to have a detention pond?
So that will,
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. Sorry to interrupt. The requirements when anything is platted at the preliminary plat stage is when the pre and post calculations have to be submitted as part of the public improvements. That is determining how water will be conveyed. Now, it doesn't mean specifically they will be using a detention or retention pond. They could do underground. The city never mandates what style of stormwater management the developer or the designer must use. It just simply says that your pre and post calculations have to align. How you achieve that magic balance is up to the designer to prove the case.
Well, being the fact that it's going to have a little over 64 acres, and it's going to be an RS 4.5, I mean, how many homes are planning on trying to be built there?
Well, it's, again, it's not so much the number of homes when it comes to stormwater. It's all about impervious surface and your pre and post calculations. So whether they build one house or 1,000 houses, it comes down to the math of how much water is being displaced by runoff.
Okay. Yeah, it's just concerning because that's a big, that's a lot of acres for the house that they want to try to build, and we got to have proper drainage because everyone knows in Corpus that we have issues everywhere with the drainage. Sure. And this is going to be a new development, and it's really important that we try to figure that out, I think, beforehand, and I did also notice that there's only two entrances, entrance and exit, I guess, to the property. Do they plan on trying to do anything else toward the back or any other area?
It's pretty much a surrounded property on three sides between property owned by the city when it comes to the J.C. Elliott landfill. Property to the north is Oso Creek, and then you only have access through County Road 33. The questions that are going through the fire department is how do you design roads to essentially have split entrances and trying to come up with multiple access points through one street, and that's an ongoing discussion.
Ongoing discussion with the fire department?
Correct, to create a parkway-style entrance, so you have a split right-of-way with a center median to create two means of traffic moving.
Okay, so it'd be approved by the fire department in order to proceed.
Well, I don't want to speak for the fire department. I can't guarantee something will be approved. I can only state that the discussion has been happening, but ultimately they hold the power as a member of the technical review committee.
Okay. Just
as we read through every plat, that they agree to accept that type of design. But that's an ongoing discussion that's been happening for years. And especially with the new UDC amendments coming up, I'm sure that discussion is going to raise its head again to another level of, do we really want to keep doing this process of accepting a split? And if we are, we need to formalize that in the code so we stop having a back and forth discussion. It just needs to be settled once and for all, either thumbs up or thumbs down to accepting that style of design.
Okay. No, I just think it's important for the safety of the residents that'll be living there.
I agree completely.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right. Any other questions?
I had one other question. In the notes, it said that hammerhead streets are not allowed anymore. Are they or aren't they? Because there is Hammerhead Street here towards the north side of the neighborhood. I just think they'd be better served as having an exit onto County Road 33. Well, then you'd get 3 exits, and then you would eliminate that Hammerhead Street also.
Sure. So of the 3 levels of platting, you start with master, which what I was saying before the meeting, that is when you're first setting the table. You're saying we're going to have this many dinner guests. This is how the table's going to be set. We haven't gotten to the stage of preliminary and final where you get the finite details. So at the master level, only the rough roadway network has to play out. At the next level, the preliminary, is when the TRC takes it to the next level and decides whether or not they're going to accept hammerhead design. And that's the catch to your question. In the UDC, it does mention hammerheads, but it says only if approved by the TRC. Now, the 3 groups that are the most involved in that discussion are traffic engineering, fire, and solid waste, since those are the 3 most impacted for service. That is the question that will again be raised, whether or not it needs to be a hammerhead, whether or not it needs to be a cul-de-sac, or if routing to get another connection point is going to be warranted. But that, again, happens through that back and forth with the TRC.
So basically, we're at master prelim, then we would get a final prelim next.
Correct.
And that's whenever all these questions would have to be finalized?
Because at the preliminary level, you have to initiate your public improvements, you have to come up with your roadway cross-sections, all your right-of-way cross-sections, and then you get to the utility layout. So you're essentially filling in. If you can imagine, you're doing a rough sketch at the prelim, now you're starting to fill in more lines, and you're going to get to color at the final level. But as we progress through each step, more of those issues are fleshed out. That's why many times we'll ask, why do we do the master if we're just going to ask all the questions at the next step? The reason is because the master is going to give you the grand design of the entire development, where at the prelim, you may be only finalizing 2 or 3 units at a time. It's not touching the perimeter of the entire property. That raises another question we're going to get into with UDC about perimeter roads, which kind of addresses some of those questions you asked earlier. When we get presented with projects that are touching new right-of-ways that need to be widened or need to be designed, that should be happening at the master level, but the code doesn't quite ask for that yet.
So there's not necessarily a conditional master prelim, it's just the master prelim. And then the next level is when it's either a final prelim or a conditional prelim?
Good question. So conditional prelims, when we've done them in the past, only exist because we know it's a problem that's going to be fixed with the final. Usually, 9 times out of 10, it's a stormwater question. How is stormwater going to be conveyed? We're waiting on calculations for their stormwater quality management plan. Outside of that, at the preliminary level, there's not too many conditional comments since they're having to finally sketch in those right-of-way designs, the flow of utilities, so they can match their public improvement plans. So that's where the very expensive part of the engineering comes in, because if it doesn't match, you never make it to final.
I just thought that those have to be figured out before we get to the next level, but it's basically at the second level when you figure out all your construction plans and everything like that.
Correct.
Okay.
Appreciate the info, Andrew. Anybody else have questions? All right, seeing none, I'll go ahead and open up the public comment for items 2 through 5. Seeing none, we'll close the public comment, entertain further discussion or a motion.
Make a motion that we approve the consent agenda items A and B as presented by staff.
I second it.
All right, we got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Moving on to director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Other than telling everyone to stay warm, there's no director's report tonight.
All right, thank you. Anybody have future agenda items to schedule or discuss? Nope. All right, we are adjourned.
Gavel them off.
Yeah. Well, it's like not
Having them removed by the police.
Every time somebody comes up for comment,
kind of like when you're down the street and it goes to a
countdown and it's.
but you have a house.
Is that where it's supposed to be?
No, but I always.
I feel like it should be.
Like just one block, or one house.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Used to be a clock. It's like, hey, we improved your room, but we made it work.
it just says dead end.
Yeah, it's like the worst.
Yeah, okay, I didn't,
They love doing them. It's near the
I have my own.
too. And I'm like, why?
because this is already platted right here, right? Yeah, to where this would